I was thinking about this the other day. Usually when we talk about a transaction, there is this underlying expectation of simple, straightforward logic.
Right, like a clean exchange.
Exactly. Think about buying a carton of milk at the grocery store. It is almost entirely frictionless. You walk down the aisle, you look at the price tag, you check the expiration date, and you just put it in your cart.
Yeah, you assess your immediate need for that milk, the price is acceptable, and the transaction concludes.
It's a clean binary exchange of value.
Yeah,
I mean, you give the store $4, they give you a gallon of dairy. Nobody is sweating. Nobody is negotiating with the cashier over the milk.
it is deeply comforting, really.
Hmm.
The human brain craves that exact level of predictability. We like things to be visible and, neatly categorized. You
Hmm.
have a biological need, the product fulfills it. I mean, our ancestors traded a handful of berries for a piece of flint with that exact same psychological baseline.
But then you step out of the grocery store. You step into the world of high-stakes business or modern marketing, complex B2B sales, or even just pitching your own startup.
Oh, totally. It changes completely.
Suddenly that simple exchange of value is completely obliterated.
Mhm.
We are looking at a landscape today that is, well, honestly, it's a psychological minefield.
That's a great way to put it.
So let me ask you, and if you're listening to this on your commute or at the gym, I want you to really think about this. Have you ever been pitched an offer that sounded like absolute magic?
Like a total undeniable no-brainer.
Yes, where someone is promising you $1 million of value for $10. You read the landing page or you listen to the salesperson, and every single box is checked.
But instead of whipping out your credit card and buying it on the spot with joy, your stomach tightens.
Exactly. You immediately start looking for the catch.
Because that tightening in your stomach is the absolute definition of a modern trust crisis. It is literally a biological threat response.
Wow, a threat response.
Yeah, and it is exactly what we are going to be dissecting today. The mechanics of why a perfect offer actually triggers a fear response in the modern buyer.
Well, welcome to the deep dive. If you are joining us, you know our entire ethos here is taking a massive stack of sources, right? The heavy books, the dense research papers, the raw data, and extracting the most critical paradigm-shifting insights.
And today, we have a mission that I am incredibly excited about.
Same here. Because we are exploring this fascinating, almost paradoxical tension in modern business, persuasion, and offer creation, we are basically going to stage a heavyweight debate between two distinct, wildly successful philosophies that seem to completely contradict each other.
In one corner, we have the philosophy of the Grand Slam offer.
Right.
This is drawn primarily from Alex Hormozi's groundbreaking framework in his book, $100 Million Offers.
Which is everywhere right now.
It really is. And the entire premise here is about structuring a business proposition so flawlessly valuable, so undeniably stacked with bonuses and guarantees that people literally feel stupid saying no to it.
You're engineering absolute perfection in your value proposition.
Exactly. You do it to escape the trap of commoditization.
But then, in the opposing corner, we have the philosophy of radical transparency.
Which is a huge shift.
It is. This comes from Todd Capone's brilliant work in The Transparency Sale. And Capone argues that in our modern era, which he calls the feedback age, perfection actually kills trust.
It's so counterintuitive, but his argument is that if you present an offer as flawless, if you present that Hormozi-style Grand Slam with zero downsides, the modern buyer's brain instantly rejects it.
It just flags it as marketing fluff.
Right. He says you actually have to lead with your product's flaws to win.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, the stakes here are incredibly high for anyone trying to move an idea forward. I mean, how do you sell a Grand Slam in a highly skeptical 2026 market?
It's a completely different environment now. We are living in an era where buyers have access to endless peer reviews, competitor pricing, and historical data right in their pockets.
They're more educated, more analytical, and significantly more cynical than ever before.
So the question is, how can pointing out your own weaknesses, like literally leading with your product's flaws, actually make your incredible high-value claims more believable?
That is the specific tension we are going to resolve. So whether you are prepping for a massive boardroom negotiation, trying to market a side hustle from your garage, or you just want to understand the underlying psychology of why you buy the things you buy, this deep dive is going to fundamentally rewire how you view value.
Absolutely. It changes how you view honesty and influence entirely.
Okay, let's unpack this. I want to start with the sheer magic of the Grand Slam offer. looking through the Hormozy perspective.
Because before we can talk about flaws, we have to understand what makes an offer irresistible in the first place.
Right. And the core of the Hormozy philosophy begins not with the solution, but with identifying a fatal disease that kills most businesses.
Commoditization.
Commoditization. If a customer can compare your apple to another apple, they are going to make their decision based on one thing and one thing only.
Price. It is a relentless race to the bottom.
It really is. If you and the business across the street are both selling the exact same apple, the only way you win the customer is by charging a penny less.
And then they react by charging a penny less than you.
And suddenly, your profit margins completely vanish. You are working yourself to the bone, grinding out 80-hour weeks just to keep the lights on and break even.
It's a miserable existence for an entrepreneur, and it happens across literally every industry.
Oh, yeah. Think about freelance graphic designers or local landscaping companies or even mid-tier software platforms. If you look and sound like everyone else, your value is dictated entirely by the cheapest guy in the room.
The Grand Slam offer is designed to solve this by fundamentally changing the fruit. It makes your product an orange.
I love that. You completely differentiate yourself.
Exactly. Through a specific combination of pricing, value, guarantees, and naming strategies, your prospects are forced to make a value-driven decision rather than a price-driven one.
You completely remove yourself from the comparison game.
You become a category of one. When a customer looks at your offer, they shouldn't be able to say, well, the other guy does this for less because the other guy isn't doing this at all.
And the math behind this differentiation is just staggering.
Yeah.
Let's look at the data point provided in the text.
It's wild.
Hormozy compares a standard commoditized offer to a Grand Slam offer to show the compounding effect of getting this right. Let's say you spend $10,000 on advertising for both.
Okay, baseline established.
With the standard boring offer, you get a tiny response rate, a few appointments, maybe a 16% close rate, and you charge $1,000 for your service. The math shakes out and you make $5,000.
So you spent 10, you made 5, you literally lost half your money.
You are bleeding out. But observe what happens when you apply the Grand Slam framework.
This is where it gets fun.
You spend that exact same $10,000 on ads. But because the offer is so much more compelling, you get 2.5 times more people responding to the ad.
Your cost per lead just plummets.
Then, because the offer is irresistible once they are on the phone with you, you close 2.5 times more of those people.
Right. And because the perceived value is so astronomically high, you aren't charging $1,000 anymore. You can confidently charge 4 times the price.
I mean, I have to pause and just do the math on that compounding effect.
It's huge.
That is 2.5 times the volume multiplied by 2.5 times the conversion rate multiplied by 4 times the price.
Which results in 22.4 times more cash collected upfront.
22.4 times. You do the exact same amount of work fulfilling the service, you spend the exact same amount of capital on ads, but your business completely explodes.
It feels like absolute magic. It sounds like one of those late-night infomercial promises, right?
It really does. But Hormozy doesn't just leave it as magic. He breaks it down into a very specific, actionable formula. He calls it the value equation.
What's fascinating here is how he defines value. We use that word all the time, add value, value proposition.
Yeah.
But it is usually a squishy, abstract concept.
Yeah, totally vague.
But Hormozy defines it as a literal mathematical equation taking place subconsciously in the mind of the buyer.
Okay, lay it out for us.
The equation is the dream outcome multiplied by the perceived likelihood of achievement. You take that entire top half and you divide it by the time delay multiplied by the effort and sacrifice.
Let's break that down piece by piece, because if you are listening to this and you want to sell anything, a product, an idea, yourself in a job interview, this equation is the secret code to human desire.
Absolutely. The top half of the fraction is what people actually want. The dream outcome is the ultimate destination.
It is the enhanced status, the generational wealth, the perfect health. If I am buying a high-end weight loss program, the dream outcome isn't sweating in a gym for 2 hours a day.
No, nobody wants that.
The dream outcome is walking on the beach this summer with a six-pack, feeling incredibly confident, and having my partner look at me the way they did 10 years ago.
That emotional resonance is key. And then you multiply that massive dream outcome by the second variable, the perceived likelihood of achievement.
Which is crucial, and it is where most marketers fail.
Exactly. Because if I promise you that you will win the Powerball lottery tomorrow, the dream outcome is massive, hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
But your perceived likelihood of achievement is statistically zero. So if you multiply $1 billion by zero, the overall value of my promise is zero.
The buyer has to fundamentally believe that your specific vehicle will actually get them to the destination.
Right.
Okay, so that is the top half. Dream outcome times likelihood.
Yeah.
You want to make those numbers as big as humanly possible through your marketing, your social proof, your case studies.
But here is where it gets really interesting. The bottom half of the equation, the denominator, is where the real leverage is.
Because it's division.
Exactly. Your goal as an offer creator is to drive these numbers as close to zero as mathematically possible.
You divide by time delay and effort and sacrifice.
This perfectly explains why a surgical procedure like liposuction costs exponentially more than a premium gym membership.
Oh, that's a perfect example.
The gym membership might actually have a higher likelihood of long-term sustainable health, but the time delay to see results is measured in months or years.
And the effort and sacrifice required are immense. You have to wake up early, lift heavy things, eat chicken and broccoli.
Liposuction, on the other hand, the time delay is an afternoon.
And the effort and sacrifice. Falling asleep on an operating table and dealing with a few weeks of soreness.
Right. Because the denominator, the time and effort, is so incredibly close to zero, the perceived value skyrockets, and therefore the price the surgeon can charge is astronomically higher.
I love the analogy used in the text about divergent thinking when constructing these offers. To create a grand slam offer, you don't just look at what your competitor is doing and try to tweak it by 10%.
No, you have to think completely differently.
You look at a raw, commoditized product and brainstorm 100 crazy ways to add value. They use the analogy of selling a simple, boring brick.
A literal brick.
Yeah. If your customer's dream outcome is building a sturdy wall, how many ways can you stack value onto a single 50-cent brick?
Well, if we run it through the equation, you could offer overnight white glove delivery to reduce the time delay.
Okay, I like that.
You could pre-paint the bricks or pre-apply an adhesive backing to reduce the physical effort and sacrifice of laying them.
Right, made it easier.
You could offer an ironclad guarantee that if any single brick chips or cracks within 20 years, you will send a team to replace the entire wall for free.
Which massively increases the perceived likelihood of achievement.
Exactly. In doing this, you are no longer selling a 50-cent piece of fired clay. You are selling a rapid, guaranteed, effortless wall building system.
And this is where we get into the enhancement phase. Hormozi teaches us how to take this structured value and wrap it in powerful psychological triggers.
You create the illusion of perfection.
Once you have this incredible core offer, you use scarcity, limiting the supply so people physically panic that they might miss out.
Like saying, I only have the capacity to take on 4 new clients this month.
Use urgency, putting a ticking clock on the offer. This specific pricing goes away at midnight on Friday. And then you stack bonuses.
The bonus stacking is particularly clever from a behavioral economic standpoint. Hormozi explicitly states that you should never discount your core price.
Never discount.
Never, because the moment you discount, you train the buyer that your prices are arbitrary and negotiable. You commoditize yourself.
That makes a lot of sense.
Instead, if someone is on the fence, you add bonuses. But you don't just throw in random low-value junk. You systematically add bonuses that solve the next sequential problem the customer is going to have after they buy your core product.
That is such a vital distinction. If you are selling a software platform that automatically generates leads for a real estate agent, the customer's immediate next problem is going to be, okay, I have all these leads, but I'm terrible at cold calling. What do I say to them?
Exactly. So your bonus is a highly produced, proven script book and a recorded masterclass on objection handling.
You are anticipating their roadblocks and destroying them before they even occur.
You add so many of these highly valuable, hyper-relevant bonuses that the total stacked value completely eclipses the asking price.
Hormozi calls it snapping the rubber band in the buyer's mind. The price-to-value discrepancy becomes so beautifully absurd that their logical brain short-circuits and they just have to say yes.
He explicitly calls this process magic. You are artificially inflating demand through deeply persuasive communication and bonus stacking, while simultaneously decreasing the perceived supply through urgency and scarcity.
It is a masterful, almost weaponized display of human psychology.
It really is.
Okay, wait. I am tracking with you. The math absolutely works. The psychology is theoretically sound. But here's where my alarm bells start to go off.
Okay, let's hear
I am putting myself in the shoes of the listener right now.
it.
If I am sitting across from a salesperson, or I am scrolling through a long-form landing page late at night, and someone promises me the moon,
Right.
if they promise me my ultimate dream outcome, with a 100% money-back guarantee delivered in record time with zero effort on my part, and then they casually throw in 10 free bonuses supposedly worth $50,000, all for the low, low price of $997.
Yeah.
I do not feel stupid saying no. I feel incredibly suspicious. My guard goes up, not down. I assume there's a massive catch.
And that biological instinct you are feeling, that sudden rush of suspicion, is exactly why this deep dive is so vital.
Thank goodness it's not just me.
Not at all. Your skepticism is the perfect bridge to our second core philosophy. Hormozi provides the blueprint for constructing the perfect offer. But Todd Caponi, in the transparency sale, provides the crucial context for the environment we are selling into.
Right.
He teaches us why presenting that offer as perfect is actually a fatal mistake in today's world.
Let's dive deep into the Caponi perspective. Because if the Grand Slam offer is the perfect weapon, Caponi is telling us that the battlefield itself has fundamentally changed.
The physics of trust are different now.
We're operating in what he calls the feedback age.
To truly understand the feedback age, we have to look at the evolution of the buyer over the last few decades. Caponi tracks this shift beautifully, and it is entirely about the asymmetry of information.
Okay, take us back.
Let's go back to the 1970s or 1980s, the information age. If you wanted to buy a high-ticket item, say a new tractor for your commercial farm or a $1 million piece of enterprise software for your logistics company, where did you get your information?
You had to go directly to the vendor. I mean, you literally had to call the salesperson, invite them to your office, sit across the desk from them, and listen to their presentation.
They held all the cards.
They had the glossy brochures, the spec sheets, the pricing matrices. If that salesperson looked you in the eye and told you their tractor was the most reliable in the world and never, ever broke down, you kind of just had to take their word for it.
Or maybe, if you were lucky, you could call a buddy 2 towns over who owned one.
Right. But basically, the seller completely controlled the flow and the framing of the information.
Precisely. The seller was the gatekeeper. Then, the 1990s and early 2000s brought the digital age.
Enter the internet.
Suddenly, buyers had the internet. They could look up competitor websites, read basic technical specifications, and compare baseline prices online without ever speaking to a rep.
The power dynamic shifted slightly toward the buyer.
Slightly. But here is the critical caveat. The information they were reading online was still largely generated, curated, and scrubbed by the marketing departments of the companies selling the products.
It was still totally biased.
Exactly. But now we are firmly in the 2020s, the feedback age.
Yeah.
The power dynamic hasn't just shifted, it has completely inverted.
Buyers have total, unfiltered control.
Think about your own behavior.
Oh, yeah. Before I buy a simple $15 pair of running socks on Amazon, I don't read the manufacturer's bullet points about moisture-wicking technology. I scroll straight to the bottom and read 30 reviews from absolute strangers.
You want to know if they shrink in the wash.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In the B2B world, the exact same behavior applies, just with more zeros. Before a company buys a $100,000 CRM software package, they don't look at the vendor's polished case studies.
No, they go to third-party sites like G2 Crowd, Trust Radius, or specialized Reddit communities.
They read raw, anonymous, unfiltered feedback from actual users who have no incentive to lie.
The statistics bear this out dramatically. According to Caponi's text, 56% of B2B buyers now use independent peer reviews in their primary research process. And reliance on traditional so-called independent analysts, the ones who often get paid by the vendors they review, has plummeted.
But why do we do this? What's fascinating here is the neuroscience.
Right, let's look at the brain.
The human brain is at its core a prediction engine. Buyers are constantly, subconsciously trying to predict their future experiences. They're trying to forecast exactly what will happen if they give you their money.
And to make an accurate, safe forecast, the brain fundamentally requires both the pros and the cons.
Which leads us to the most mind-blowing data point in the Caponi text. And it is the statistic that completely shatters the traditional idea of presenting a flawless Grand Slam offer.
The Power Review study.
Yes. This firm analyzed millions of online purchasing behaviors across different e-commerce platforms. They found that a product with an average review score of 4.2 to 4.5 out of 5 actually sells better than a product with a perfect 5.0 score.
Meaning higher conversion rates and faster purchasing decisions.
Right. A 4.2 beats a 5.0.
This is where we have to pause and look at the underlying psychology. Why does a 4.2 beat a 5.0?
It's so weird to think about.
As Capone points out, when we see a perfect 5.0, when we see a salesperson presenting an offer with zero flaws, zero risk, zero implementation challenges, and infinite upside, our brain's ancient alarm system, the amygdala, triggers.
Subconsciously, we know from lived experience that absolutely nothing in the world is perfect.
So when a seller presents a flawless facade, the buyer's brain immediately assumes they are hiding something critical.
They view the 5.0 not as a reflection of reality, but as manipulated, manufactured marketing.
Perfection to the modern buyer is literally unbelievable. It causes a spike in cortisol.
It makes so much sense when you apply it to everyday life. The analogy I always come back to is a dating profile.
Oh, this is a great one.
Imagine you are swiping through an app and you come across a profile where someone writes, "I have absolutely no flaws. I love every single activity you love. I've never been in a bad mood. My finances are utterly perfect. My family has zero drama. And I am a world-class chef who also volunteers at the animal shelter every single morning at 5 a.m. without ever feeling tired."
What do? You swipe left so fast you break your screen.
Exactly. You assume they are a psychopath, a
Right.
narcissist, or it's a bot trying to scam you.
You immediately distrust them because the presentation lacks the texture of authenticity. It is a 5.0 presentation in a 4.2 world.
Right. But imagine the alternative. Contrast that with a profile that says, "I am fiercely loyal, I'm a pretty good cook, and I love hiking on the weekends. But, full disclosure, I am terrible at waking up early. I leave my socks on the floor sometimes when I'm stressed, and I absolutely hate going to crowded bars."
I trust that person immediately.
It is a visceral reaction. Because they voluntarily admitted the bad, my brain automatically believes the good. They gave me the pros and the cons, so my brain's prediction engine can accurately forecast what it would be like to actually date them.
Capone calls this embracing your flossum. You are awesome, but you have flaws.
Flawsome. I like that.
And to disarm modern buyers, sellers must deliberately, strategically lead with their shortcomings.
Capone suggests tactics that would give a traditional 1990s sales manager a heart attack.
Oh, absolutely. Imagine sitting down in a boardroom with a highly skeptical prospect and opening the meeting by asking, "Before we dive into what we do well, would it be helpful if I start with how our two biggest competitors are actually better than us in a few key areas?"
I mean, if I am a traditional salesperson trained on the old methods, I am sweating just thinking about saying that.
Right.
I am supposed to say we are the undisputed best at everything, but put yourself in the buyer's shoes. By admitting right out of the gate that a competitor has a better feature or a cheaper price point, you instantly strip away the buyer's defense mechanisms.
Its armor falls off.
You transform in an instant from a vendor trying to extract capital from them into a trusted advisor helping them navigate a complex decision.
And this brings us to the core conflict, the absolute center of gravity for our deep dive today. Let's synthesize the tension between these two primary sources.
Okay, lay it out.
Hormozi is telling us, using heart math and behavioral economics, that to win and scale rapidly, you must build an offer so flawless, so stacked with guarantees and bonuses, that it is an absolute steal.
Right.
But Capone is telling us, using neuroscience and buyer behavior data, that if an offer looks flawless and steal-worthy, the modern buyer will assume it is a trap and they will run away.
So how do these two realities coexist? I am genuinely struggling with this. If I have spent 6 months building this incredible, high-value, guaranteed Grand Slam offer, how do I present it without triggering this massive wave of 2026 buyer paranoia?
To answer that, we have to look deeper into the psychology of the modern buyer, and for that, we bring in the insights from a fantastic book called The Jolt Effect by Matthew Dixon and Ted McKenna.
The Jolty effect introduces a critical concept that perfectly frames this tension: the rise of customer indecision.
Historically in sales training, reps were taught that their biggest enemy, their true competitor, wasn't the other company, it was the status quo.
The prevailing idea was that customers preferred to just do nothing because change is hard.
But Dixon and McKenna analyzed millions of recorded sales calls using machine learning, and they discovered something entirely different.
It wasn't the status quo at all.
No. A massive percentage of deals aren't stalling because customers prefer the status quo. They are stalling because of profound indecision and outcome uncertainty.
Right. The authors frame it as FOMO. We all know FOMO, the fear of missing out, Hormozy uses FOMO brilliantly with his scarcity and countdown timers.
But Dixon and McKenna say the real deal killer today is FOMU, fear of messing up.
Buyers are utterly terrified of making a mistake. Let's create a persona here. Imagine Sarah, a mid-level operations manager.
Okay, sir.
She is tasked with buying a new workflow software platform for her entire 500-person company. If she buys the perfect Grand Slam offer, advocates for it, spends $500,000 of the company's money, and then the software fails, or it is too hard to implement, or the customer support is terrible.
She doesn't just lose money.
No, she looks like an absolute fool to her CEO. She loses her political capital. She could literally lose her job.
That physiological fear response, that career-ending terror, is beautifully explained by Dr. David Rock's SCARF model, which is referenced heavily in Capone's work on transparency.
Let's break down SCARF.
SCAR-RF is an acronym for status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. These are the 5 domains of social experience that your brain treats with the exact same intensity as physical survival.
A threat to your status registers in the brain similarly to a threat from a physical predator.
Exactly. So let's look at those domains through the lens of Sarah the buyer hearing a flawless Hormozy-style pitch.
Okay, first, status.
Mhm.
As we just outlined, if the purchase goes wrong, Sarah's status in her company plummets. She looks incompetent.
Second, certainty. The buyer's brain is desperately craving an accurate prediction of the future. A flawless 5.0 pitch deprives them of certainty because, as we learned from Capone, they know hidden flaws exist. The salesperson just isn't showing them.
The lack of negative information destroys certainty.
Exactly. Third is autonomy. Buyers want to feel like they are in complete control of their own purchasing decision. If a salesperson is aggressively pushing a no-brainer offer with a ticking countdown timer and high-pressure scarcity,
The buyer feels their autonomy is being directly threatened. They're being backed into a corner.
right. Fourth is relatedness. Does the salesperson understand my specific, nuanced world, or are they just reading a generic, high-octane script designed to close anyone with a pulse?
And finally, fairness. This one is huge when evaluating a Grand Slam offer. Is this a fair exchange of value? If the offer seems too good to be true, like if I am supposedly getting $50,000 worth of bonuses for $1,000, the brain flags it as inherently unfair.
The buyer subconsciously thinks, economic reality doesn't work this way. If I'm getting all this value for so little money, the seller must be tricking me somehow. I am the mark. I am being taken advantage of.
This entire SCARF threat state creates what the Joltefet defines as the agency dilemma.
The buyer implicitly knows that the salesperson is an agent who benefits financially from the sale.
The seller gets a commission check. The seller's company gets top-line revenue. Because of this vested self-serving interest, the buyer is biologically programmed to distrust the seller's claims, no matter how spectacular the offer is on paper.
The buyer assumes the seller will say whatever is required to get the commission.
So what does this all mean for us? If I am holding this amazing Hormozy-style Grand Slam offer, I have my bonuses mapped out, I have my ironclad guarantees, I have my dream outcome perfectly articulated, how do I actually deliver it into the market?
If you pitch it straight, the agency dilemma and the SCARF threats will trigger cortisol, and the buyer will shut down due to the fear of messing up.
This raises an important question, and it is the absolute turning point of our analysis.
The answer is not to abandon the Grand Slam offer. The math is too good. The differentiation is too important. The answer is that you must synthesize the two philosophies.
You must use radical honesty as the ultimate delivery vehicle for the Grand Slam offer.
Yes. You use the vulnerability of Capone to mathematically validate the unbelievable value of Hormozy.
Okay, let's unpack this synthesis. We are going to build what we might call the transparent Grand Slam.
I like the sound of that.
And to fully visualize how this works in practice, we need to pull in insights from Keenan's phenomenal book, Gap Selling, and the Always Be Qualifying methodology.
In Gap Selling, Keenan introduces a fundamental, unshakable truth of commerce. People only buy to facilitate change. They do not buy features, they do not buy bonuses, they buy change.
And that change happens across something he calls the gap.
The gap is the space between the customer's current state, which is filled with pain, inefficiency, or a lack of status, and their future state, which is their desired dream outcome.
Yes, the value of your offer does not live in your product. It lives entirely within the size of that gap. Let's use a visceral analogy. If a customer has a mild tension headache, their current state is slightly annoying.
Their future state is feeling fine so they can finish their workday.
The gap between those two states is very small. I can sell them an over-the-counter aspirin for $1. But as Keenan points out in a rather extreme but highly effective example, what if that headache is actually a symptom of a life-threatening inoperable brain tumor?
Then the paradigm shifts entirely. The current state is mortal danger and profound fear. The future state is decades of continued life and watching your children grow up.
The gap is practically infinite.
In that scenario, how much would that customer pay for a specialized pill that instantly cures the tumor? $1 million, $10 million, whatever they have.
The value of the solution expands directly in proportion to the size of the diagnosed gap.
And this connects perfectly to the value triangle mentioned in the Always Be qualifying text. The value triangle basically aligns the business issue, the personal impact, and the specific metrics of success.
The key takeaway here is that you do not need to present your product as perfect at everything.
Trying to be all things to all people is the exact 5.0 trap that Capone warns us about.
You only need to present your product as the absolute perfect, incomparable solution for their specific diagnosed gap.
Let me give you a hypothetical, deeply detailed example of how this synthesis works in a live, high-stakes conversation. Let's say you're selling a very robust, highly technical, but admittedly somewhat difficult-to-use enterprise accounting software platform.
Okay, I love role play. I am Sarah, the skeptical buyer. Pinch me.
If I am a traditional rep, I would say, Sarah, our software is the most intuitive, beautifully designed, and flawless system on the market. It does everything.
That triggers my scarf thread immediately.
Instead, I use Capone's transparency. I lean in and say, listen, Sarah, before we go further, I need to be upfront. Our user interface is actually pretty clunky. It looks like it was built in 2010, and it has a steep learning curve for new employees.
Wow.
If your main goal for this project is having a beautiful Apple-like design that your team will learn in 10 minutes, you should absolutely not buy our product. You should go to our competitor, TechFlow. They are infinitely better at user experience.
Okay, breaking character for a second. As the buyer, my jaw just dropped. You just voluntarily admitted your software is ugly, you highlighted a massive flaw, and you actively told me to go to your competitor.
I gave you the 4.2 rating.
You have completely disarmed me. The agency dilemma has evaporated because you are acting directly against your own commission check. My brain registers that you are safe. I trust you completely now.
Exactly. I have established radical credibility. Now, and only now, I bring in the Grand Slam offer. I continue, BUT. Based on our discovery calls over the last month, your specific gap isn't user interface. You told me you are bleeding $50,000 a month in international expense reporting errors.
I'm listening.
Because our clunky software was built by obsessive forensic accountants, it has a proprietary error-catching algorithm that runs in the background. It is ugly, but it will solve that specific $50,000 bleed 3 times faster than anyone else on the market.
Here comes the Grand Slam.
And because we know the learning curve is steep, if you buy today, we will include a dedicated forensic implementation team for free for the first 6 months. Furthermore, we guarantee that if we don't catch $50,000 in errors in the first 90 days, we will refund your entire purchase.
Boom. That is a transparent Grand Slam in action. You use the flaw, the clunky interface, to definitively prove your honesty.
And because you now believe I am genuinely honest?
I actually believe your massive Hormozi-style guarantee and your incredibly valuable free implementation bonus. If you had just led with, we have the best software, free implementation, and a money-back guarantee, my FOMU would have kicked in and I would have assumed it was a scam.
You anchored the magic to reality.
This specific dynamic is what the Joel Tefek refers to as radical candor, acting as the ultimate enhancer. High-performing reps use radical candor to prove they are an agent for the customer's success, not just an agent for their own wallet. They will actively tell buyers when they're asking for things they don't need.
I love the example in the Joel Ulte text where the salesperson tells the customer to buy less.
It's so good.
The customer comes to the table with a budget, wanting to buy 100 software licenses for their entire department. The traditional rep would be salivating, calculating their commission, maybe even trying to upsell them to 150 licenses.
But the Joel T rep looks at the implementation plan and says, honestly, do not buy 100 licenses today. Start with 20. Let's get a core group of power users adopting it first. Figure out the bottlenecks and then scale. I don't want you wasting your budget on 80 unused seats for the next 6 months. That is profound behavior. By intentionally sacrificing short-term commission and telling the customer to spend less money, the seller completely obliterates the agency dilemma.
They have protected the buyer from outcome uncertainty and defended the buyer's status.
The buyer thinks, wow, this person actually cares if I succeed. Once that foundation of trust is rock solid, the seller can lay out the massive value of their Grand Slam bonuses for those 20 seats, and the buyer will consume them without a shred of skepticism.
Here is where it gets really interesting. There is a specific tactic in Hormozi's $100 million offers that actually perfectly aligns with Capone's transparency, even though Hormozi frames it purely as a value enhancement.
Oh, right. It is the concept of the anti-guarantee.
Ah, yes. The anti-guarantee is a brilliant psychological lever. Most people assume a guarantee has to be the classic, 100% money back, no questions asked, 30-day trial.
But Hormozi points out that in certain contexts, particularly for high-ticket consulting or proprietary information, that kind of generic guarantee actually devalues the product.
It makes it seem cheap, ubiquitous, or easy to return. It lowers the perceived exclusivity.
Instead, Hormozi suggests using an and-by guarantee for highly exclusive services. You look the buyer in the eye at the very moment they expect to be reassured, and you say, all sales are final. There are absolutely no refunds under any circumstances.
Now, if you stop there, it sounds arrogant.
But you provide the specific reason. We offer no refunds because our proprietary system is so powerful and the operational secrets we are going to reveal to you are so exclusive that once you see it, it cannot be unseen. You cannot unlearn what we teach you. Therefore, we only want fully committed partners who are going to do the work, and all sales are final.
If we look at that tactic through Capone's lens, the anti-guarantee is actually a damaging admission.
It's a calculated vulnerability.
You are explicitly telling the customer that they are taking on risk. You are deliberately removing the safety net. But perversely, by being radically honest about the risk and giving a highly logical, status-driven reason for it, you skyrocket the perceived value.
You make the offer seem incredibly exclusive and elite. You are telling the buyer, we don't need your money badly enough to coddle you.
It is the ultimate fusion of the two philosophies. It is a 4.2 rating delivered in the form of a boundary.
You are saying this is not a perfect, risk-free 5.0 transaction where you can just back out if you get lazy.
Huh?
If you buy this, you are committed and it will require effort.
And the buyer respects that boundary. It builds immense trust while simultaneously inflating the perceived value of the destination.
So if we trace our steps, we have built the theory of the transparent Grand Slam. We understand the mathematics of the offer, and we understand the neuroscience of trust. But this brings us to the harsh reality of execution.
How do you actually steer a live conversation or structure a marketing funnel to execute this flawlessly? When a buyer starts pushing back, how do you take control of the room without triggering those SCARF F threats?
Let's dive into execution and taking control. To do this effectively, we need to pull heavily from another seminal text in our stack, The Challenger Sale by Matthew Dixon and Brent Adamson, as well as revisiting Keenan's gap selling.
Because having a great offer and being honest isn't enough. You have to know how to lead the dance. You can't just be a passive order taker.
The Challenger Sale revolutionized how B2B organizations view high-performing reps. The authors conducted massive research and discovered that the best sellers are not the relationship builders.
They aren't the reps who just buy donuts, agree with everything the customer says, and try to be everyone's best friend.
The best sellers are a profile called challengers. They take control of the sale through a highly specific process called commercial teaching.
I love the concept of commercial teaching. Challengers don't just walk in and ask generic, open-ended questions like, so what keeps you up at night? Or what are your strategic goals for Q3?
They assume the customer might not even know what their biggest problem is. Challengers do their homework. They understand the customer's industry better than the customer does.
They walk into the room and teach the customer about a massive bleeding problem they didn't even know they had. They reframe the customer's entire worldview.
And the crucial distinction here, and this is where so many salespeople fail, is that challengers lead to their solution, not with their solution.
A traditional rep walks in, opens their laptop and says, look at my amazing Grand Slam offer. Look at all these features and bonuses.
A challenger walks in, keeps the laptop closed, and says, based on our forensic research, companies in your specific supply chain sector are bleeding millions of dollars due to an invisible inefficiency in how you route international freight. Let me show you exactly how it is happening on your watch.
They diagnose the gap and they make it hurt. They make the pain so vivid, so financially real, that the customer is desperate for a solution.
But as the Challenger Sale points out, there is a massive danger here for a smart salesperson, and it's called the free consulting trap.
You go in, you diagnose the problem brilliantly, you provide these amazing insights, and the customer says, wow, Sarah, thank you. That is incredibly helpful. I had no idea we were losing that money.
And then they take your brilliant diagnosis, walk out the door, and go shop around for the cheapest commoditized vendor to fix it. You did all the work and someone else got the deal.
This is exactly where taking control becomes paramount. You must tie the insights you deliver directly back to the unique, uncopyable capabilities of your Grand Slam offer.
You teach them about a massive problem, but you frame the problem in such a way that it can only be solved by your specific vehicle.
You demonstrate that your offer, with its unique bonuses, its specific guarantees, its proprietary methodology, is the absolute only viable bridge across that newly discovered gap.
And what happens when you do this successfully? You earn the right to defend your price. Let's be real, Grand Slam offers are not cheap. Hormozi's whole goal is to escape the race to the bottom and charge absolute premium prices.
But human nature dictates that buyers will always, always push back on price. It's too expensive. We don't have the budget this quarter. Can you do a 20% discount?
This is where the tactical execution of radical transparency becomes a superpower.
Keenan's gap selling provides a masterful framework for handling these price objections transparently. He explicitly states a rule that makes most reps deeply uncomfortable.
Never defend your product and never defend your price.
That sounds crazy to a traditional seller, but defending your price puts you in a subordinate, defensive posture. It sounds like you are justifying your commission, which instantly triggers the agency dilemma all over again.
Instead, Keenan gives us the I'm confused framework, and I absolutely love the psychology of this. Let's role-play this one more time. You are the buyer, we have gone through the whole process, and you are pushing back on my $40,000 Grand Slam offer.
You know, this all sounds really great. The insights were helpful, the bonuses are nice, but $40,000 is just way out of our budget right now. It is simply too expensive for us to pull the trigger on.
Now, traditional me would panic and say, but wait, look at the ROI. Look at the guarantees. I can go ask my manager if we can do $35,000.
Right.
But transparent challenger me pauses, looks slightly puzzled, and says, I'm confused. Earlier in our conversation, we mapped out together that your current routing errors are costing your company $50,000 every single month. That is $600,000 a year bleeding out the door. How is a one-time investment of $40,000 too expensive to permanently stop a $50,000 monthly bleed? Did I misunderstand the severity of the problem we discussed?
It is utterly brilliant because it forces the buyer to defend their own logic. You are using radical candor to hold up a mirror.
You are not aggressively pushing your product. You are expressing genuine, professional confusion about the massive discrepancy between their stated pain, the current state, and their hesitation to fix it. You are making them argue for the value of the solution.
You are holding firm on your premium pricing because you have thoroughly diagnosed the gap. And as we discussed earlier, if you have already been transparent about your flaws, if you already told them your software has a steep learning curve or is clunky, they know you aren't just blowing smoke to get a deal.
They know you are a trusted advisor. You have systematically limited their desire to explore other options, which, as we know, is a key part of overcoming indecision in the jolt effect.
By thoroughly diagnosing the gap up front, being radically honest about what you don't do well, and teaching them about unrecognized problems, you become entirely indispensable.
You are no longer a vendor hawking a commodity. You are an expert consultant offering a customized, high-value, guaranteed bridge across their specific chasm. The trust validates the magic.
Okay, let's take a deep breath because we have covered an immense amount of ground today. We have traversed the behavioral economics of pricing, the neuroscience of trust, and the tactical, boots-on-the-ground execution of complex negotiations.
Let's summarize the journey we've been on so we can lock this in.
We started with the realization that in modern business, you do not have to choose between crafting an offer so good it feels like magic and being radically honest. It is not an either-or proposition.
In fact, in the modern world, honesty is the necessary delivery mechanism for the magic to be believed.
Hormozi gave us the architecture of the perfect offer. Maximize the dream outcome and the likelihood of achievement while ruthlessly minimizing the time delay and effort.
Stack bonuses that solve the next sequential problem. Create urgency and scarcity. Build an offer so undeniably good that people feel stupid saying no.
But Capone, supported by the massive data sets and the Jolet effect and gap selling, showed us that presenting that offer as a flawless 5.0 will instantly trigger skepticism, outcome uncertainty, and indecision.
The modern buyer, armed with endless reviews and data, is terrified of making a mistake. They are hyper-aware of the agency dilemma and the scar of threats.
So the synthesis is the transparent Grand Slam. You deliberately lead with your flaws. You embrace your 4.2 rating.
You look the buyer in the eye and tell them what your product is bad at, or you recommend they buy less than they asked for. This radical candor obliterates their defense mechanisms.
It proves definitively that you are acting in their best interest. And once they believe you are honest about the bad, they will actually believe you when you present the unbelievable, magical value of your Grand Slam offer.
I want to turn this directly to you, the listener. Think about your own life. Look at the products you sell, the projects you pitch to your executive team, or even how you present your own resume and personal brand during a job interview.
Are you desperately trying to present a perfect 5.0? Are you hiding every flaw, sugarcoating every past failure, and polishing every edge until it looks like manufactured marketing fluff?
Where can you strategically inject some flawsome transparency? Where can a well-placed, damaging admission actually make your real strengths shine significantly brighter?
It is such a powerful paradigm shift. Stop trying to be perfect. Start trying to be credible. The moment you let go of perfection, you gain influence.
And that leads me to a final thought I want to leave you with, something to mull over on your own as you go about your week. We have talked extensively about products, software, and commercial offers.
But if behavioral science proves that a 4.2 to 4.5 rating is the absolute ideal trust score for a product, what is the ideal score for a person's professional reputation?
Oh, wow. I love where this is going.
Think about it deeply. Is there a point where being too highly praised, or curating a perfectly flawless personal brand on LinkedIn, where you only ever post about your massive wins and morning routines, actually limits your career growth?
Do people subconsciously assume you are inauthentic if you never admit to a failure, a weakness, or just having a really bad day?
If a perfect 5.0 product is biologically unbelievable, is a perfect 5.0 professional equally untrustworthy?
That is going to keep me up tonight. It fundamentally changes how you view every interaction, not just sales. We started this deep dive talking about buying a carton of milk, looking for that simple, frictionless binary logic.
But what we've found is that true value and true lasting influence isn't found in perfect logic or flawless presentation.
It is found in the messy, vulnerable, transparent reality of human connection. The magic only works when you have the courage to admit that it isn't magic at all. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the consensus, keep looking for the flossom, and we will catch you next time.